Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of
I would like to have a conversation.
And today I talked with
Todd.
Yeah, I did. And we talked about the new program I launched, which is Built for Adventure, but also what I'm using it for the rest of the year. So kind of diving into what you guys see me do all the time, training, and why I'm doing it and how I'm doing it. Is that pretty cool? It's almost the end of holidays. How many days are left? 3. That's been pretty good?
Yep.
Yeah. You want to say goodbye?
Bye.
Bye.
We're having breakfast.
You are. See you.
Bye.
How's it going?
What's going on?
Not much. So
All right.
last week we talked about what your go-to, which I got a few messages about that actually. So I'll send people to the website as well to check it out, and they're going to reach out to you as well, which is cool. But yeah, this week we thought about going over what I'm doing, working towards. Does that sound cool?
Yeah, before we jump in, I'm curious what your thoughts are on the assessment I sent you on Ed Reed.
The running assessment to do.
The what?
The running assessment you got me to do.
Did you know the video I sent that one of our coaches breaking down Ed Reed's movement?
Oh, I didn't even get a chance to check that out yet.
Okay.
I'm checking it out today. Just because.
Okay.
So, school holidays. It's nuts. So I've been joking. Funny enough. It's funny, just a bit of a tangent. I just wrote it in my journal yesterday. Don't launch a new coaching program during school holidays. It's been absolutely wild. We thought Ruby broke her foot on Monday. She was up. Was it Monday? Yeah. She was up like midnight in our bed and just saying how sore she was. And she didn't go to sleep until the morning. Went to not outpatients, but like a doctor's, which is kind of the same. It's like the alternative, so we don't fill up our emergency. We went there and sat there for like 2 hours. And it doesn't look like it's broken, but she was bitten by something and it was sore for the rest of the day. And it was sore half yesterday. But yeah, crazy holiday time. But yeah, I have not checked that out yet. This was just funny. I'll be checking it out today.
Lesson learned. No.
But
But all right, so
yeah.
you tried launching it during
yeah,
school holiday.
like
but yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, let's see. We really want to hear. I see all the changes being made as far as the pictures and the logos. So I was really excited because I took this weekend off. I was at a music festival, so I didn't do any social media. And I got to be honest with you, it was fantastic. And then coming back to it, I felt so much dread. It wasn't even funny. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. But anyways, yeah, let's talk about what you're doing and so you can update everybody.
Yeah, that's a good point. What you said. Like, I'm talking about it before on here where I had the busy dad squad and I shut it down because it wasn't exciting me anymore. It wasn't what I wanted to talk about anymore. So big thing with the pivot is more aligned to what excites me and what I'm already doing. So the new program is Built for Adventure. It's literally my code, I guess, and philosophy for how I want to live physically in my life moving forward and how I want to be able to do things all up until I'm like 60. I saw a video of a 70-year-old guy doing a 100-meter sprint and he was fast. He did it in 12 to 13 seconds. I was like, that's cool. Like being able to do that at that age is pretty awesome. It's funny when I get to this age, like I'm turning 40 next year, I'm looking at like people who are like 70 and 80. I'm like, that's awesome. But so yeah, Built for Adventure is just the methodology I use to train to do all the things that I'm doing right now and doing it in a way which is enjoyable, which is I think one of the biggest things when I talk to parents, they think they just have to do all this stuff. Have to do this, have to do that, have to do this. Like where it starts becoming like chore-like. Like, oh, gotta get to the gym, all those things. And for me, a lot of my training literally is for managing my depression over the years. But what I did was always push too hard. Like I went really, really, really intense and just kept burning out and getting injured and then starting again. On the flip side of that, I would always do like a strict diet. Everything was like really intense. And then it kind of worked before kids, but once I had kids, it was really hard to stick to. I'd burn out, put on weight, cycle. It was always bouncing around. And probably the last 3 years, I made a change to the way I was training where I wanted to be strong and, lack of a better word, look good naked. And I wanted to be fit enough to go do a 21K Spartan race within like a 4-week period. Because most parents, like, I don't know what most parents do, but we don't plan too far out. There's so much that changes with what's going on with Theo and Ruby. So usually if there's a Spartan race, I might only sign up 4 weeks before. Like, but I want to be ready to go do it within 4 weeks. So always having that capacity. And the other part was like, I was like doing fun workouts. So similar to CrossFit, but not doing this, some of the stupid shit that CrossFit does. Just that style of workout where it's really varied and different all the time. So that's where the Built for Adventure thing kind of came from. And it worked off this idea that 3 days on, 1 day off. I've sort of fell into this pattern of if I did 3 days of training and then had a full rest day, I could do that for a very, very, very long time and never burn out. And then even inside that 3 days, only 1 day is really hard. 1 day is kind of like medium. And then the other one is like super chill. So the 3 components, now I've got names for them because I didn't have names for them because it was just me. But building the program, I started giving them names. And one's a strength builder, just to get as strong as we can for whatever it is that we want to do. And I use the analogy from Brett Jones, where strength is a glass. The amount of shit you can handle in your life is based on how big a glass you have. And he uses the analogy out of like, if you are as strong as a kitten, your glass is like a shot glass. It's like tiny. So when shit goes wrong in your life, it feels like just things just spill over more easily and you're more prone to overwhelm, anxiety, and just getting cooked. But if you're as strong as you possibly can be, you get your strength to a size of like a bucket. You can fit more of like shit in there without having a spillover effect. And I know that's definitely what works for me. The fitter and the more often I can show up for my training and the more things I'm able to do, I just tend to handle more life stuff better. I did it in one of my social posts this week where if I know I'm doing these things, everything else seems to take care of themselves. So that's the strength part. We're wanting to get, well, for me, I want to get as strong as I can to do all the things I want to do. Play soccer, go do Spartan races, play with the kids, crawl around the floor, all those kinds of things, and do a little bit of just the gym bro stuff that I've always liked. So I hit that on the strength builder day. The next day is like engine builder, where it's just building capacity, work capacity. How much work can I do without absolutely cooking myself and just losing my breath to do the things? So during the soccer season, it was like, how many games can I play on the weekend back up for without tearing a hammy? Funny enough, I tore a hammy, but I was still able to play through it. But it's all like easy conditioning. It's sort of like similar to like Dan John's easy strength, but easy conditioning is like the maths, like 180 minus your age, heart rate stuff, or nasal breathing. How much work can I get done in the time period while just nasal breathing? So it's very low intensity, but it's just building a lot of work for my engine to have a shit ton of capacity, really, to be able to do all the things I want to do. For me, most of it's like incline running, incline walking, and maybe mixing in the other conditioning elements I've got here because I'm kind of lucky. I say I'm lucky. I've got a bike, a ski erg, a rower, a treadmill. The only reason I've got them is because we had to close the gym. So I would have them anyway. But most of the time, the moment it's getting warmer, I'm going for runs on our trails just out behind the house anyway. But yeah, putting in the work there just to build capacity. So we've got our strength cup, building our capacity cup. And then the adventure awards, which is like a better word. Originally I just called awards, but adventure awards is trying to combine the two together. Like a little bit of strength with a little bit of conditioning and mixing it together to sort of basically building like mini obstacle races, really. But making it exciting to train for. So some people love strength training, will just do that. Some people love running and will do that. Then that's when CrossFit come in and started putting them both together. And I really like them, where I can sort of bounce between the two. So like compromise conditioning. Can I get up and run with good technique, which is funny after you watching my video. Can I run with good technique after doing something like some deadlifts? So do like six deadlifts and go for a run, and then come back and do it over and over again. So they're kind of like the three components I plug in. And then the fourth day, which is like 3 days on, 1 day off, is usually just a regen day where I go for active rest, like a bike ride, jump on the trampoline with the kids and do some mobility sessions and stuff like that. I tend to do mobility every day, but yeah, the new Build for Adventure program for dads is based off that philosophy, creating a system where they're touching on everything and not so much where they're probably going to burn out and cause an injury. It's just enough where the dose can just gradually increase over time. We're hitting all the things we need to tackle adventure races, go on hikes, overnight hikes. Like one guy has just come in, Paul, he does like backpedaling, where you go on these multi-day bike ride where you camp up in the hills and you got to take your bike up the stairs and all this kind of stuff. So he does that kind of stuff, and that's what he wants help with the training for. Just stuff like that. Like, that's cool. What's kind of exciting that you want to get out for and go do it. And there's another dad who just come in who doesn't really want to do the adventure thing yet, but he read the little guidebooks that I've created so people can get an idea of what it's about. And in there, it says like parenting is like the greatest adventure anyway. So if anything, we're building your capacity to live a better parenting life, like we were. And he was just sold on that. He's like, I just want to come in and be a part of that and just sort of have something to be excited about and show up for. So yeah, that's what it kind of looks like at the moment for the community part of it. And then for me, I haven't really locked an event in yet. There's a few I'm looking at. There's one, the backyard adventures, which is going to be like a bunch of challenges in there. One of them I want to do is run a mile every hour for 24 hours. And around that, just get all this stuff done around the house. So during the day, it's like weeding the garden and doing all this kind of thing. Like this stuff I've just been putting on the list and sort of holding off on. Get all that shit done. And during the night, it'd be like maybe recording a course or just going live and just recording tons of content. Just something that I could just get done in a 24-hour window, play with the kids and stuff throughout the whole time doing it. But like the challenge is you're running a marathon in a 24-hour window, but breaking it down. There's a guy, Bo Miles, who's a YouTube, whatever they call them. What do they call YouTube people?
Influencers?
Vlogger. That's the
Vlogger.
one. Yeah, he did it in his town, just not far from here. And it's like the video's got tons of views on YouTube. And he's written a book, he's traveling around the world talking about his backyard adventures. And that one of his is my favorite one. Like it just sounds pretty cool. I've done a shorter version of it and it was actually really cool. Like the body was pretty cooked because of like the stop start aspect of it. It was kind of fun to knock it over. It was like a 12-hour one I did. So now I want to do 24-hour. And then we finally got Hyrox in Australia. So Hyrox landed last year. So there's one at Christmas in Melbourne, around Christmas, where I'm thinking about doing that. And then trying to lock in the next big adventure race, which there's two I'm looking at around October, November. But yeah, so that's kind of like what I'm working towards. And shedding a bit of weight that I picked up over the soccer season, which is not an oxymoron, but it's kind of funny. I was working it out. I put on 5-6 kilos through the soccer season. just from like the little injuries I was having where I couldn't get out and do my recovery runs because I was nursing an injury. So I wasn't moving as much. I was in my soccer eating mode where I was snacking more to make sure I was fueling enough for all the workouts, but then I wasn't doing all the workouts. So it was kind of like I wasn't really paying attention. It shows how quick things will change
Mm.
because I wasn't eating shit. It's just like snacking on extra things. Usually I just bring in like certain snacks around stuff, like dried fruit is one thing that I bring in during the soccer season. Stuff like that. It was just adding up. I was watching it go up too. I was like, I'm waiting for the end of the season. Because the previous year, I focused on trying to stay lean and even get leaner during the season. And I'm just felt exhausted. So it wasn't the time to do it. But now the season's over, a lot bit more control. It's time to get lean again. But yeah.
Definitely. I have a few questions from the from the workout side. You'd said like I love the 3 on 1 off with like the built-in kind of active rest day, all that makes sense. The first thing that came to mind was, I think one of the biggest problems with CrossFit is um underestimate or let's see.
How do we word
People
this?
overestimating the shape that they think they get in
Yeah.
when they first start.
Mm.
Because, have you ever seen that graph where, it shows like these strength gains and all of these, all these different gains? The problem with it is you haven't built that, what I typically see, and I've worked in this realm is that they don't slowly build these capacities. And with your approach, even though CrossFit does recommend the 3 on 1 off, I believe,
Kinda,
not all
yeah.
gyms do that.
No.
Nor do the people abide by that. But what I love about it is when done correctly over time, because of the built-in rest, this is something that could potentially, go on for a very long time because you're slowly building the capacity. And that was kind of like what I wanted to highlight. But what I'm curious about is within the strength and within, the capacity building workouts or the engine building workouts, what are you using as a gauge to make sure that you are still on track to like continue this forever and not get to that point where you've gotten in the past I don't say burn out, but get injured?
Yeah. Which is good. It'll get kind of technical for anyone who's listening, but this is how I kind of do it, which I've learned from years of being a PT, I guess. But kind of like in the strength training, auto regulation to a degree with like reps and reserve and things like that. So there's a book if anyone wants to get it, APRE, which is done by Brian Mann. And when he sets his rep ranges, he has like a guide. So let's say I think it's APRE 3 rep max. Or let's say APRE 10. Let's say APRE 10, which is 10 rep max. Generally, the first set's 50% of the working weight you want to do. Second set is 75%. The third set is your first working set. When you do it, you go as far as you can to technical failure. And I do it until like 2 reps in reserve. If I go in under 2 reps, I'm cooked. And depending on the reps you get, the fourth set is adjusted up or down based on what you got. That's a really loose way of talking about it, but that is what I use to make sure I stay fresh in the lifts. Like I'm a little bit cooked from a workout I did with my mate Greg on Saturday morning. And it's now Wednesday. I'm still a little bit sore from it because I've been doing like symmetrical work, like doing lots of isometrics and stuff since the soccer season finished to sort of rehab a little bit. And that was my first big lift for a while. And we did box squats and a couple of things like that. And yeah, I'm still feeling it a bit today. Not too bad, but so I've got strength again today. So when I do come into another session and I'm feeling a little bit, I'll go to the easiest version of that thing just so I can show up. So Dan John's easy strength will probably be the dose today, where it's all like 60, 70% of the max. And I stick to the rep ranges and then just that's it. It's kind of like a tonic just to keep things going. But if it feels good while I'm doing it and I'm getting into it, then I'll go more. So I'll go very much by feel, which is, I think it just takes time to learn, which is the most annoying thing people will hear, but you learn from your mistakes, and it's just
It's not
one of those
annoying. It's,
things.
you know,
Yeah.
I was having a conversation, I don't wanna say similar, but, like, this weekend, the 2 other couples were chiropractors, and my friend was like, "Oh, who would you recommend that I can learn from to help teach exercise to my clients?" And it's so interesting because some of my mentors, like, don't give this they just wouldn't give a straight answer.
Mm.
And, I'm like, in my head, I'm like, "Just tell me somebody so I can go look." But I realized I was giving my friend, a really similar answer, because when you understand and know that, like, a lot of this is philosophy based, you
Yeah.
have to go try it, you have to go learn from other people and incorporate it. And so when I got done telling him, I was like, "Listen, I think that forward movement is the one thing that we need to code out." I was like, "All this strength and all this other stuff comes second to making sure that people can walk with straight feet and, all the GOAT stuff."
Yeah, yeah.
And he was like, "No, but just tell me." And I was like, I went and learned from whoever I could. I went and learned from David Weck. I picked up all the books and strength and conditioning, and I was like, and this is what I've settled on. I take principles from strength conditioning, but I still believe that everybody should be able to move forward through space. So I don't think it's boring. I don't think it's, people may want that, but the whole idea behind all this is you fall in love with training because you experiment and you're curious
Mm.
about it. If you were jump into a program and you're just like, I know I need to work out and give me a program and give me a work, it's like, you're going to freaking hate it. Like, cause
Yeah.
you may not feel called to it for whatever reason. So do all the mental work before, so you can, anyways, the other question, that was a tangent. The other question I have is, what are you utilizing for you and the members to indicate their daily stresses outside of training and how that incorporates into their training or what they should be doing
Yeah.
that day?
Outside of like things like HRV, if they've got them, like they've got a Garmin, which could have HRV, there's the Morpheus app, which has HRV, there's Whoop. They're all got pros and cons, but at least if they're using one of those things, it can give a trend. And
Okay.
HRV, if anyone's listening, is just basically it's a stress reader. It checks to see, it checks your pattern of heartbeat. And the weird thing is, if your heartbeat pattern is really random, you're good. Your heartbeat's meant to be a little bit all over the shop. But if it's really constant and the same, it actually means you're getting a little bit cooked. But either way, the apps tell you that shit. You don't need to know any of that. It literally just gives you a HRV score and you can sort of guide what you need to do. I kind of use those as a guide. And then I use a biofeedback tool. So it's kind of like, I got actually learned this from Doggy, trainers here locally. He taught me this when I was working for him and he learned for someone else. I can't remember who it is. So I can't remember who to reference, but I'll ask him later and I'll put it in the show notes. It's kind of like an assessment where you score yourself out of 3, 0 to 3 for sleep, hunger, mood, energy cravings. So we can kind of give it, like, that's what I use. He used a different one, but I use that to sort of gauge how cooked they're getting. Like the sleep is like, I score for my guys now, we score it out of 10 because it gives it like for them, a more accurate score. So I'll give you an example, like Simon, who's just had a newborn baby. His sleep scores are never more than 3. And his like mood is usually pretty much around there too. And his cravings and hunger are through the roof. So he's just like a bucket of stress. So the training load that he can put on is not much. He can still train. The rule is we show up every day, no matter what. But the dose just changes to whatever you got left. So when I teach the art of showing up to these dads, we use the traffic light scenarios, but the stress cup scenario, which I learned from the book Strong Medicine, which is an amazing book. It's huge, very sciencey, but it's very good, by Dr. Chris Hardy, I think his name is. But yeah, it's like, it's a, what were the original kettlebell guys? Pavel's first group? Dragon Door. It was the Dragon Door book, that publication. But anyway, so in there, he had these pictures, and I've used these pictures all the time. I just draw my own one. But it's got like the 3 cups. There's like inside the cup, there's like all kinds of stress will go inside this cup. So it's like your work stress. If you have poor sleep, that goes in there. If you eat shitty food, that goes in there. The training that you can fit on top is whatever's left over. So for a lot of people, especially if you've got a newborn, the stress is like your cup's almost full already. If you try and go do something like, we're hating on CrossFit, it's any kind of training program. It could be Orange Theory, it could be F45, any of those really high intense programs. In the moment, it feels good. It's really stressful and it releases endorphins because your body's under stress and then your brain's trying to make you feel good about it. So it will give you that, but it's overflowing your stress cup, which will eventually what eventually happens. And he talks about this in the book. If you constantly keep overflowing your stress cup, it starts oxidative stress, which down the road leads to all these other issues. Like you start having like autoimmune diseases, depression, anxiety, all these things that build up, which is what was happening to me. I was like training really hard to get rid of my depression. But I overflowed my stress cup, which would just lead to more depression. So I'd just go back and train really hard. And I just kept doing it backwards and forwards. So I literally took what alcohol was doing and just did it in the training sense. And it wasn't until I had to start figuring out, which is what we were just talking about before, where it's experimenting and stuff. All these tools I've got is because I've tested stuff out and, lack of a better word, fucked up and had to find a tool, the next thing, the next component to make that work better so I can constantly show up better and stay more consistent, which is the game. If the only rule is to show up every day and the only rule is to feel good every day, everything has to funnel through those 2 filters. And you sort of throw stuff away that doesn't work, which is why I threw away CrossFit because it just kept destroying me and moved into other stuff. And I loved CrossFit, but I just couldn't, my body didn't. So, and my stress couldn't do it either. Like the amount of stress from that just didn't work with my body. So yeah, I use that self-assessment tool, especially if I don't have HRV. That tends to give me a better idea anyway. And for most of the time, it's like the other part is, especially anyone that's like over 35, over 35, technically, you probably shouldn't have more than 1 or 2 really hard sessions a week. And that is it. Everything else is tonic to allow you to show up for these 1 or 2 hard sessions. So usually I have one really big one on the weekend. Like on Saturday, went for a run with Kat. She did the 5 and then I went off and did more. And that ended up being, so we did a flat 5K and then I went up and did the trail behind the house. It ended up being 9, which is my biggest run since the season's finished. And that was cool. And then we went and took the dog for a walk. So added steps on top of that. And then we were doing stuff with the kids and we're like, oh, we should take them to the mountain bike track, which is like behind the uni here. And it's really like it's really good for young kids. It's gradual. There's hardly any jumps, but they can go around the jumps. Lots of switchbacks. But it's like a 1.5 kilometer loop. Because Ruby's bike is shocking and the chain pops off so easy, we had to run. And Theo came stacked literally on the first little bump. So we're like, we'll have to run with him. So I ended up doing another 5 laps of on the same day of this thing. So that dose was really high. That was in that 3-day window, that was the highest training dose I got that day. And my body felt it the next day. So when I work with people in this Built for Adventure thing, it's a lot of it is getting them to buy into the idea of like, you don't need to destroy yourself all the time. The most important thing is that we show up every day. Even on the rest day, it's still active. So you still got to get 10,000 steps. So show up every day, pick one of those 3 things inside that 3-day window, or 4-day window, really. Pick one to be your go day. What is the one that you want to go at it? So the guys that are strength biased, that they just love being in the gym and getting strong, they'll go usually push themselves really hard on those strength days. Then the conditioning days are like very chill. They might do bike rides instead of running. And then the adventure wards, even the adventure wards, which they would sound like they would be the hardest ones. Most of those for me are the recovery workouts where it sits between like 120 and 140 beats on my heart rate. And I still have things like randomly like burpees and stuff in there, but they're so slow. It's more like a mobility burpee, just getting down and off the ground, but keeping my heart rate in that zone while doing lots of different activities. But that's a long-winded way to say lots of ways to sort of tweak it. And it's hard to know what works best because depending on the person, I might tell them like, you don't have a hard day. Like you've got consistent days. They could basically just show up days and you get one hard day every 2 weeks, which is hard because I used to use it as a stress reliever. And every now and then, if I get a message or even for myself where something just really is pissed them off or I'm really, really frustrated and pissed off, I'll just go and do another hard day. But then I've got to give myself the recovery days afterwards, knowing that my tank's going to be a little bit empty. I can't do that all the time. And then I've got to go do the actual thing that works, which is journaling. That makes me feel better anyway.
I think that actually worked.
Yeah.
I love it.
So it's got a loaded, yeah, there's a loaded answer, but it's super unique, which is another thing. Like the answer of like every coach is like, does this work? It's like, it depends.
Right.
Like the dose for the person it does depend so much. Like Simo, the new dad, his dose is just so small because he's got so much shit going on. While this guy who does the backpedaling, he's like 60. He's an empty nester. So he can, he can do whatever. But I'm like, just go. Like, whatever your capacity is, let's just do it. And he's got a huge engine. He's just got niggles and injuries where he can't do certain things. But yeah, it always depends. I guess, like, on that note too, like, it seems like we're talking at like this really high level of performance and stuff like that. But you can come in at any level and it's just adjusted to the person. Like there's a new guy that's just come in who has not done any of that stuff. And he's probably around the same age. And it'd be like his engine building will be walking in the trails. And when that gets really easy, like if he can do the trail walks and his heart rate's below 120, then we just put a weight vest on or a backpack. And that could be his thing. That's his engine building. The adventure wards are what people want to do. Like I just build random stuff. Like one of the workouts is a guy chucks his kids in a wheelbarrow and he walks around the block with the wheelbarrow and he stops as much as he needs to, but it's kind of like a loaded carry, but the kid gets something out of it too. Another guy, he's got like, it's kind of funny. He's got bricks in his backyard in a massive pile. He's got to pick them up one by one. In his hands and farmers carry them to the other side. And all the way over, it could be like, I don't even know how many bricks there are, but it takes him a while. And then the next week he's got to move them all the way back. It's just weird stuff. Whatever rando kind of thing that we can think of that makes it, that showcases the fitness that they've got, which is probably the main thing. Like the adventure was to showcase what you're building and the strength and their engine building stuff.
Got it.
Loaded words.
Oh no, I think that's a good distinction. Like, I think so many people, concerned about working out or, whatever fills their mind because they don't maybe have the experience with it. So that was a good clarification that a lot of this, what it sounds like is obviously very doable and you meet the needs of the person because you're extracting whatever information you need to understand their situation better and where they're at. So, which is what any good coach should do. But, I just want to establish that. Very cool. Is this mainly around training or is there going to be nutrition involved?
Yeah. So nutrition as well. So we've got the 3 components. So it's build for adventure, which is the training piece. And then we've got fueling for adventure, which is the nutrition piece. So it's like a simple rule. It's fueling for fat loss if your waist measurement is over half your height. Like that's just the rule. We're not worried about getting ripped or anything. This is taken from like Australia. We have the BMI test to put us in our categories. I'm obese, but in the UK they have the waist measurement first and then the BMI test afterwards. So I really like that. So when I get asked, it's like, should I go on a diet? I'm like, is your waist measurement over half your height? They're like, yep. I'm like, cool. Then probably need to be some kind of deficit. Need to fuel for fat loss in some way. And they're like, what happens when I get under it? I'm like, cool. Then we can switch to performance. It doesn't mean you're going to be like ultra ripped. That's like a totally different conversation.
Right.
But it gets you in shape to look good with a shirt on. Like you look good. You look good going to the beach. You're just looking good, Nick. You look like you look after yourself. So that's the rule of thumb. So that's the first step with the fueling for performance or fueling for adventure. So it's either fueling fat loss or fueling for performance. You sort of fall into those two categories. And then we've got the protein set point, which is like figuring out the amount of protein to keep their hunger, energy, and cravings in check. And then we just figure out the diet detective stuff, which is just like a very catch-all tool, I call it, for all the different things we can do. Because it's like there's fasting and that works for some people and definitely does not work for others. And there's like the circadian rhythms and fitting all that, all those really cool, like shiny object stuff. That's when we test it out after we get the first two.
Yeah.
So that's a fueling for adventure. And then the last one is built to last, which is kind of like the tools of showing up, where it's like getting shit done is the first tool, which is planning your week and building it towards that perfect average day. And it's like the Re-Energize to Motivate tool, which is all those like these little micro sessions of mobility or flexibility or foam rolling or basically anything. The reason why I call it Re-Energize to Motivate is we all want more motivation, but we don't know how to get it. We hear it all the time. Like, I'm just not motivated to do this thing. Yeah. No shit. No one's motivated to foam roll. Like, who would be? But what we do know is like that energy is tied to motivation. If we have more energy, we'll have more motivation. No one knows how to get more motivation. Everyone knows how to get more energy. It has to feel good and focus on de-stressing and recovery and all that kind of stuff. So if you want more motivation, you just got to work and plug in things. And it's kind of like greasing the groove, that concept where you're touching on it often. It doesn't have to be this huge thing, but touching on it often enough will allow you, it's like kind of plugging your phone into charge to keep it going to the end of the day. Like that's the kind of analogy we use, because if we've only got so much time to work towards this health and fitness shit as busy parents, I know, and you know as well, like I know, we all know the recovery re-energize stuff is probably going to be the best thing that will allow our other stuff to happen. But it's a really hard sell because they just don't want to do it because they're like, I don't have time to fluff around with this stuff. So it's like, cool,
Right.
we'll give you what you want, but you got to give us what we need as well. So it's kind of like plug in these 5-minute, 10-minute things to sort of keep you going. And then after a while, they start buying into it and seeing how good they feel doing it. And it kind of works. And then the third piece of that built to last is the art of showing up, which we use that traffic light analogy. So the program's there, nutritionally and everything. So like red light, yellow light, green light. If you're absolutely cooked, just do the red light stuff. And if you're not too bad, which is where everybody lives, like it's school holidays now. So nearly all parents in this area would be floating between red and yellow. When we thought Ruby broke a foot, that was a red day. So I tend to just do red, yellow workouts during the school holidays, except for obviously that time when we did the extra running where I did not expect that to happen when we were taking the kids. We did not plan for that. So yeah, red, yellow, and then green. Again, this is a tool I learned because of Dan John. I had to learn how flexibility stuff. And green is like that. We'll call it for parents, like the mythical zone where it's like everything's perfect. You probably don't have the kids around you. Or like you're in one of those like resorts in Fiji where you can just hand your kids off to them and go do whatever you want. There's food cooked for you. You've got no work stress. You got no money stress. Like nothing. There's nothing going on in your life that's going to derail you. Like for most parents, it could be a 1 to 2 week period of the year, and you do green light stuff. So we kind of scale things through that. Reds are really easy, like super easy to do even on your worst day. Yellows is like everyday life. Green is like the elite day, like double sessions. Go for 3-4 hour hikes because you got capacity, although they're kind of the green days. What we do is we show up enough for those, and eventually the green becomes the yellow because you're showing up enough. Your yellow is now so easy to show up for, it's now a red light. And then your capacity gets bigger and bigger and bigger the more you sort of constantly keep showing up. So that's the kind of the 3 tools: the build for adventure tool, fueling for adventure, and build to last. And that's what we kind of teach. The hardest to teach is the build to last stuff. Everyone loves the build for adventure shit, the workouts and everything. The nutrition is the next domino. Once they get the nutrition right, they realize they don't have to train as much. They're just training because they want to. They're not using training as a fat loss tool, which is what I try and teach. Training is just training. Nutrition is fat loss or performance. And then the build to last stuff is, like we said, probably the most important. As the one that at least want to put effort towards. But when the people that do, they usually crush it. It goes from being like effort to get the other 2 things done to like just flow. Like it's just much easier.
I have to say, since you introduced that to me and I've introduced that, it has been for those that want to understand it, or maybe they accept it.
Yeah, yeah.
Because there's too many people that believe that they live in the red every day. But it's been extremely helpful for people to identify like where they're at. Because some days there is going to be a shitstorm, right? And I have one client in particular. I actually have a call with him at 3 after this. He is a business owner. He's a dad of 2 or 3, and just super busy guy. I love our phone calls because he can get on there and be like, "Hey, I'm in the red. These are the things that I'm still checking off, and I'm doing well." And he lost like 25 pounds in a matter of like 2 months. So, he's just
That's pretty bad.
crushing it. And he's eating more food than he ever, he's eating way more food than he ever would have on any of the other, crash diets he's ever been on.
Yeah.
So,
Which is cool. And it's a good example because they're the people I love working with, especially like people who are business owners or high level executive type people who are so busy, but want to get more time with their family, but also want to look the part for whatever they're doing. That's the kind of stuff I like to juggling their stuff is super interesting to me. When someone comes and they're like, it sounds really bad, but when someone comes and their calendar is completely open, they're like, there's nothing. They got kids and stuff, but there's nothing else. They do their 9 to 5. They got kids, but there's nothing else going on. They're like the ones I'm like, just do the work, which is a head thing. Like there's a head thing that's stopping them from doing it. And that's where the conversation goes. Like you obviously just don't like this shit. Let's find something you want to do, which is a big component of, the build for adventure thing is finding your style of physical fitness that you'll be happily to show up for. Like I do running and obstacle racing and strength building or power building in the gym and then the obstacle WODs. But those categories can be flicked and changed around to whatever they need to be. The strength can be turned into something really small just to facilitate a marathon runner. And the adventure WODs is just trying to get that marathon runner to do some random stuff just so they don't constantly pound the pavement all the time. But there's like those buckets are just to create enough variety to show up when you're working on this stuff yourself. Because that's probably one of the hardest things I see is like the whole analogy of like, just not motivated to train myself at home or wherever. Like, yeah, I get it. Because you think you have to do all this shit that is kind of boring in your head. Let's just make it fun. Let's figure out different ways of doing things And then it starts making it like once they get that idea, like, oh, you can pretty much do anything for fitness that you enjoy. And we just plug in certain things and make sure you stay anti-fragile enough to keep doing it. The nutrition part is the fat loss part. That's the hardest conversation I think to have. It's like, fuck, it's not training. This has bare minimum effect on what you're doing on the scale. Like it puts on, like it's going to get you fitter, put on muscle. It's not going to help you lose weight. Not that much. It's so minuscule. And the amount of effort, and I get it because I did it, the amount of effort people put in the training to lose weight, like they'll train harder and harder and harder and harder just so they could keep eating the same stuff. And I used to do it all the time. And it used to lead to me being injured or burnt out so often. And then when I just do the fueling for fat loss rules, it was so much easier. And then my training was fun again. I could do whatever I wanted. It didn't matter. I didn't have to go do a 2-hour run just so I can eat eggs and bacon or whatever it was.
Right.
And that's, I suppose that's like the other big thing we're doing with the Built for Adventure thing is, well, for me, this is the way I'm doing it. There's this concept called Metabolic 10, and I steal shit from all the other coaches and spin them up for whatever I need because they're just cool concepts. And this one's Jade Tedder's concept. And he has like these 10 items of food. The cool thing is like, it's whatever, as you do this, the 10 items become whatever they are to you. Like, cause you might have certain allergies or food that knocks you around, or there's trigger foods. Like if you put certain foods on there that are trigger food, that will just make you eat more of it. So it doesn't really end up becoming a metabolic 10. So my metabolic 10 is like a protein supplement is number one. So I could use that. If I had snacks, it's literally going towards a protein shake. Just protein, scoop in water, drink that. That's my snack if I need a snack. And then normal protein of meats and all that kind of stuff. And then dairy is the next one. But the only dairy I tend to have is like Greek yogurt, maybe once or twice a week. And some little bit of cheese is like feta and salad. And then fruit and veg. That's pretty straightforward. And then I'm going to miss my 10 because I don't have it in front of me. But then there's like complex carbs, which is my ones are rice and potato. The rice, potato, sweet potato, they're the three. And then after that, fermented veggies is my next one, which is I'd set it as a different category because it just it's so good for me and my gut. Long story short, when I was younger playing soccer, I was on endone to play a soccer game with a torn hamstring, and I was taking pre-workouts at the same time on an empty stomach and completely stuffed my guts for like maybe 6-7 weeks in a row. And ever since then, my digestive system has been really, really funky. So fermented veggies and stuff do the thing they need to do, which makes me get a little bit more regular or less regular in that sense. Too much overshare. So I can't remember. I'm already blanking on what the other things are. I tend to stick. They're mainly my main foods:
Protein, dairy, fruits and vegetables, and what you had just shared.
Yeah, the fermented veggies is that. And then usually you pick one thing for the week that is outside of that, which is kind of like off plan. But the way I do it is I stick to that list pretty much 90% for the week. And because I'm doing a leaning down goal, I stick to that till I get to the next milestone. And my milestones are every 0.5 of a kilo. Once I get to that milestone, that day, I can go free reign. I can have pizza, I can have a burger, I can have ice cream. Doesn't matter. I'll just do whatever I want. I don't really track it that much, but usually I just do it inside one eating window, which would be usually dinner. And then I'll just go back to the plan and just stay Met 10 for the rest. And it works for me better in the sense of like doing the rule-based. I still track my calories. I use macro factor. It tells me how much I'm allowed to eat to make sure I'm able to fuel for my training. I think that's really important. But I can stick to that Met 10 and lose weight without tracking it, but I might lose my performance side. So that's the reason why I do it.
Got it.
So I'll do that. And then I could probably if I brought in something every day, like if I picked one thing that I go, cool, I'm going to do 80-20 every day. And I might have bread every morning for brekkie or something. It tends to spiral up for me. Like I tend to have to use too much willpower every day to keep it
Right.
constrained into that little thing. So I change it to spreading, like moving it between milestones. So then I can just have it and then go back to my plan. And that tends to work for me better, but it's different for everybody. But yeah, I find Metabolic 10 makes me feel good. And then follow those milestone things, use a macro factor to tell me how much I need to eat volume wise to lean out at 0.5. The goal is 0.5 a week leading up to Chrissy, which is it's pretty cruisy. If anyone has a checked out macro factor, if you want to lose weight, literally put Todd and I out of business, go get the app. It's so good. I just tell everyone I coach, like, this is the best thing you can get. I can do it as well, but this is the best thing I've seen on calorie tracking and losing weight. If you don't want to calorie track, that's when a coach would make more sense.
Yeah.
I think I just heard a bit for you. Do you have to wrap up?
I've got to wrap up. Yeah, I got a coaching call to go to. So
I'm in.
No, I appreciate you sharing all that. And I just wish, because of like both of our experiences, I do wish people take from this like the importance of really understanding that make your fitness fun and interesting for you. Make it practical. Then you don't need to be lying on the floor, in a pool of sweat every day to think it's working. So
Yeah.
and lastly, it doesn't contribute as much as you think to your weight loss.
Yeah. Which is huge.
I love it. Yeah.
I'm in.
So once people realize those things, but it's just like there's a conversation if anybody wants to have that can go deeper into some of those things. But
Yeah.
what we just talked about is something that has been experimented and tried and works, because the whole idea is to do this for a long period of time. So.
Yeah. And if anyone wants the guide, I'll put links in the show notes to reach out to me. Just send me a DM and say, I want to see the Build for Adventure guide. And I'll send it through to you. It's about 47 pages. And it literally goes over everything that's in the program and the philosophy of how we do it. And if it makes sense, then we can have a conversation about getting in there and being part of it.
Beautiful.
All right. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Told you fly, go do your call. And
Yeah.
We'll see you next week. Bye.
All right.
Thanks, dude. You better fly.
I'm gonna upload